Today's episode is brought to you by Armament Technology. They've come out with their brand new SAI Optics 3 MOA micro red dot sight. This thing is IPX67 rated. It's lightweight, compact, robust, durable, and it's wicked for rapid target acquisition. Make sure you're following Armament Technology on social media as well as Silvercore on social media for your chance to win one of these for yourself. Now, if you're a Silvercore Club member, you've likely already heard of today's guest because Rick and I sat down and we recorded an exclusive podcast episode for the Outpost. The Outpost is the Silvercore Club private members podcast. If you're already a member and you're not listening to the Outpost, log in to your club member portal through silvercore.ca, get your unique link, put it into your podcast provider. Each and every week, we've got short, motivational, inspirational, educational episodes where I'll sit down and talk or I'll have guests on to provide their perspective to help Silvercore Club members in all aspects of their life. Finally, here's my ask to you. It would mean a great deal if you're able to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. And in fact, if you take a screenshot of the review that you leave and you email that to info@silvercore.ca with your mailing address, I'll send you some Silvercore stickers as a thank you. Now, without further ado, let's get on with today's episode. Today we're in Alaska with a man who, along with his wife Dori, built chrome chasers, guiding on some of the wildest areas in the state. He's a licensed Coast Guard captain with a degree in cell biology, a lifelong outdoorsman, and a part of the MeatEater crew known for its conservation-minded approach to fishing and harvest. Welcome to the Silvercore Podcast, Rick Matney.
How you doing, Travis?
Pretty good. It's not like we haven't spent the whole last week together. That's, again, I say it time and again, never talk with somebody about all the things you want to talk about on the podcast prior to the podcast, but I've broken the cardinal rule. We spent the last week on your boat, amazing boat, by the way, in beautiful Wrangell, Alaska, foraging, fishing, looking for mushrooms. We didn't get some clams in, but Tides didn't quite cooperate on that one.
Yep.
Hiking, checking out streams. It's been absolutely amazing up here and eating like kings, I must say. Is that what Chrome Chasers is all about? Because that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, basically. I mean, we're just sinking everyone into Alaska. I mean, just burying yourselves right into the heart and soul of it. So it's everything that people have done for hundreds and thousands of years up here to survive, and now we get to do it for kind of fun in a way. So,
you know, I've never been to Alaska before. I've always wanted to be, and I got to say that this has far exceeded my expectations for what I thought Alaska could be.
Yeah.
Can you just paint a picture for us of Wrangell, Alaska, and kind of anybody who hasn't been here, what they can expect to see?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of situated kind of in the central part of southeast Alaska on the Inside Passage, way to the inside at the mouth of the Stikine River. Historically, it's had a lot of significance for the fur trapping industry to start with. After that, the cannery industry for seafood and salmon for shipping fish out. So it's got a lot of history. It's it's been flown under 3 different flags. The British have owned it, the Russians have owned it, and the Tlinkits have owned it, and now flown under the U.S. flag. And so it's got a lot of rich history for Alaska in general, and specifically Southeast Alaska. It's a temperate rainforest for the most part. It's pretty mild. It is in the Tongass National Forest. It's the largest rainforest in the Northern Hemisphere. So we do get a lot of rain, as we found out this week. We got hammered this week by Mother Nature.
It wasn't that bad, though. I mean, for the amount of rain that we did get, and you said, like, this is unusual, look at how much rain we're getting. I mean, we still have periods throughout the day where it's dry and
for sure.
It's warm, and I was bundled up, and I'm like, I'm throwing extra stuff in my backpack because despite being wet, you don't really I didn't really notice it.
Yeah, you get used to it for sure. Historically, this time of year, we don't see a ton of rain. The one thing that's very surprising about the Inside Passage and it's Southeast Alaska on the inside is how calm it can be. Looking outside today, you're not seeing that. We have a hurricane warning that I've, of all the years I've been here, I've seen that. I think this is the 3rd time I've ever seen that pop up on NOAA. But yeah, the weather is typically very nice, very mild. The oceans are very flat. For the most part, our entire season, we had 2 months of glass water straight. We had maybe 1 or 2 days where there was 1 to 2 foot seas. Other than that, it was pancake mirrored, flat off glass the whole time. So that's super, super rare in a lot of ocean conditions, and it's something that a lot of the Inside Passage has in Southeast Alaska, which makes it very pleasant.
Yeah. I mean, when it was blowing around the corner, we could still get out and get crab traps and prawn traps, and we could still get out to the different streams. Although with the amount of rain we had, the streams were a little bit higher, which made things interesting. But despite all that, we're pulling out silvers, as the Americans call them, or cohos, as us Canadians call them. Which are sitting in the smoker right now, which is about 30 yards from us as we're recording inside.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, there's a little bit of everything, and it's very unusual to find a place like this where it's not so singularly focused, I find. And the other part that I found was quite interesting is despite the rain, despite the wind, there's still plenty of things that we can do out here.
Oh, for sure. It's almost unlimited. The Tlingit Nation down here, they had a village down south of town here about 10 miles. We went right by it. It's called Found Island. That supported a village size of between 2,000 and 3,000 people, and they never had to go more than 5 miles from town to support a village of that many people. So the fertility and the diversity of everything that you could use to eat and survive on here, it doesn't take a lot of land or a lot of area to have more than what you could ever use. And so it's such a fertile environment that has so many different facets and options that no matter what Mother Nature throws at you, you can still go do something to harvest something to eat or whatever else. And it gives you a lot of options.
So what I found was really interesting. So is April Vokey, mutual friend of ours, her and her family is up here right now, me and my family. And she was telling me all about you. And I would listen to some of your other podcasts and read some of the work that you've done. And you came from a highly educated background of, looked like you're going down a path through university, the laureate elite, as they say. And you just made a little bit of a right turn right off of that.
Yeah, I took a pretty hard right turn.
Yeah. So what was that about?
Well, I was valedictorian growing up in high school. I got to do a lot of stuff, and as long as I kept a 4.0, my mom let me do some skiing and motocross racing and a bunch of other weird things that most kids didn't get to do at my age. Went to college. College was easy for me. Ended up getting a couple degrees in college. Was on my way out to med school. And while I was in college, I worked as a fishing guide, trout fishing guide, and I did a little bit of hunting guiding towards the back end as well. And I had 2 fishing clients that heard I was going to head off to med school, and they came to Bozeman. They were from Billings, and they sat me down and put a blank piece of paper on the table and said, write down why you want to be a doctor. And I thought I had it all figured out. I was well on my way out the door.
Well, what did you write down for why you wanted to be a doctor?
I basically said it was always expected of me. I was good at math and science. I got my degree in it. This is, obviously what I'm supposed to be doing because this is what I'm good at. But really, I just want to have enough money to hunt and fish all over the world. And after I said that at the last, they read what I put down and they took the paper and flipped it over and they said, write down what you do now. And at the time, I was doing hosted trips to La Paz. I was just getting pretty heavy into the guiding end of things, both hunting and fishing, mostly fishing, and traveling all over with hunting and fishing and guiding in 3 different places and that kind of thing. And they said, you're doing what we want to do after we retire. He's like, you're living our job or our dream too. I mean, if that's what you really want and that's what you're passionate about, and if medicine isn't your number one passion, you shouldn't do it. And they talked me out of going to med school right then and there. I mean, it didn't even take that much convincing.
What did the family think about that?
My mom was not impressed. My mom has a couple of PhDs, and to her, if you stop at a bachelor's degree, that's like I might as well have got a GED and dropped out of high school or something to her. So, yeah, it was a choice I made. I went and took all the basically effort that I was putting in money and everything that I'd saved up for med school, and that's how I started Chrome Chasers. Those guys said, hey, find something you're passionate about. Figure out what it is that you want to do and just go for it. Like, I mean, we know that medicine's not your number one, but we've been rolled down a river with you in a drift boat for 40 days before. We know what you're about, and medicine isn't it.
Well, did you have a bit of a roadmap as to where you're going, or was it just one big question mark? I mean, if you're going through medical school, there's a program in place, and there's expectations, and there's a shared understanding of what you're doing to be successful
Correct.
in the medical industry. And in the hunting, fishing, outdoor industry,
not a roadmap.
I don't know if you can say the same thing. It's rather eclectic.
Yeah, there's definitely not a path that is like, okay, here's what you need to do to have a successful fishing lodge. You need to go here, start with this, learn how to do all these things, and go. And that's not mapped out. And I didn't even know that fishing was what I wanted to do to an extent. I mean, I was still into the hunting world pretty heavily at that point in time. And, I've had to survive in different circumstances in a guide aspect where I was running an outfitter camp in Montana. We had a wall tent. I had to cook for clients and everything else. I got one grocery run a week. So I had to learn how to cook in the woods. Sure. And forage for what I couldn't get in my once a week grocery run kind of deal. And so all of this kind of compounded together to kind of form what it became today up here, which is basically a lifetime of outdoor experience that I try to share with people that come up here, if that makes sense.
Well, it's kind of a cheat code, honestly, for somebody who's new to the outdoors, who hasn't been hunting, fishing, foraging, just
trapping.
Yeah. And when you're trapping, you really learn the land.
I mean,
in a way that people who hunt and fish are only scratching the surface, it seems. You start getting into trapping, and it's just a whole different level. Like, there are levels to all of this.
For sure.
And, I would have to think that anybody on the outside who's never been to Alaska, who wants to be able to experience the lifestyle, that this is a cheat code to tap into somebody who's been there and who's done it and can help guide them down that path.
Yeah, for sure. And I learned from, my dad, and, he learned from his dad. And I grew up in a family and, multiple generations of trapping and logging and living outside.
Right.
We didn't have a town close to us. All of our own animals we butchered. We butchered everything we ate for domestic animals. Plus we lived off of deer, elk, everything else. So my background is not just my experience, but it's, the generation in front of me as well that was built off of. So.
And that's the hardest thing for most people. Most people don't have that mentorship. They
Correct.
want to get into the outdoors. They want to learn to hunt, or they want to learn how to fish properly, or they want to even just start foraging. I'm surprised at the number of people who are afraid to go a few steps out into a wooded area because they feel they might get lost, or they're unprepared, or bears.
Bears.
Right? Just
it's
like
always bears.
That's right. Always bears. They've watched that movie Cocaine Bear too many times, and it's just some rabid, monstrous bear is going to be lurking around every tree. Or the ocean, it's always sharks, right?
Yep.
I see that as being a huge detractor for people going outside. For you, so you had generations of that sort of environment that it kind of came in, but how about the foraging? We met your father, Mike. Was he into foraging?
And it was something we never talked about growing up. It's, every now and again we'd go by and we'd be up, checking a logging stand, running some of our logging programs when I was younger, and we'd see a bunch of shaggy manes on the side of the road. He'd just pull over and start grabbing them, and I'd jump out and grab them. And Dad, what are these? He's like, oh, they're shaggy mane mushrooms. That was the last thing that was said about it. We brought them home, we ate them. So, I mean, it was just something you did. You're in the woods all the time when you find opportunities, like fungus and mushrooms or huckleberries or whatever it is. And it's like, one day I remember my grandpa, it was me and my grandpa and my dad, we were up at our cabin in the Selkirks, and we ended up breaking down. And while we were broke down and we had a radio to one of the log truck drivers to bring a starter up, we were picking huckleberries, and it's like, well, what are we going to do with all these huckleberries? Well, we'll make jelly. That way we have jelly for the winter. And it was just, you always kind of had that in the back burner of stuff. So it was never like it was a chore where it was like, okay, today we're going to get huckleberries for jelly. I mean, sometimes we do that, but for the most part, it was just like, okay, we need to get this to make this for this later. And it was just sort of a way of life. And it really went kind of almost unsaid growing up. And because of that, you learned what you could and couldn't eat. and things of that nature.
Does it become a chore when you start guiding as a living and you're taking other people out? Like, is it? I know you do the fishing a lot more now.
Yeah.
You started in the hunting world. Like, does it become? Everyone says never make your love your business, right?
Yeah.
Does that happen?
No, I mean, it's never a chore. So, before when I was, doing different, camps where I'd have to forage to get stuff for meals, it was a chore then because I didn't tell anyone I was going out and doing it. I just did it and brought it back, and when you get done, it's like, well, where did these mushrooms come from? It's like, I picked them out over the, down off the other side of the hill and brought them back. And they're like, oh man, these are really good. What kind are they? Well, it's a bullet, it's, these are a porcini like you'd see in the store, except they grow out here in the wild too. And so I almost was private about it to the point where I didn't think anyone else would want to do it. And then as I got older, I realized that other people also had the desire to know what they could and couldn't eat in the woods. And so it became, to me, it was a chore early on, and now it's fun for me because no one ever really told me why we were doing it. We just did it. And now it's a little bit easier for me to make it more palatable for other people and more confident for them to go into the woods and be like, okay, these are things I can eat. These are things we can harvest. Here's how to tell, this is completely safe. This isn't going to kill you. And it's more fun. So it's actually more fun for me now to do what, years ago I would consider a semi-chore.
Okay. So while we've been here, we've eaten some world-class food, some world-class meals. That was from your grandfather and father as well, or what?
No, they're meat and potatoes guys.
Okay, so what I'm curious about is the learning process, because you didn't just have all of this stuff through osmosis. At some point, you started stepping off and really started pushing forward.
Yeah, the cooking thing, it was born out of necessity and then fine-tuned over years. I'm a fat kid at heart, and I love trying new stuff. And so a lot of it came with just experimentation and everything else. But I had, working down in Hawaii at a place, we had a private chef from Australia that would come down. And, he kind of took me under his wing. He saw that I really had a desire to cook a bunch of, especially unique dishes and different things, way outside of a little country kid's repertoire. And he really helped me out with the technical aspect of everything. And kind of how that started is we were down doing one of our little hosted kind of trips, and he ended up getting sick and couldn't do the big 7-course meal for the lodge. And the owner of the ranch said, "Hey, I need you to step up." He's like, "You're the next closest guy we have to a chef here. It's time for you to step up and lay out a 7-course meal."
And you're like, yeah, not a problem? Or are you like, holy crap?
I was a little nervous because the clientele we had there were some very high-end individuals.
Okay.
And very well-traveled world, a bunch of famous people. And so it was a little bit of a shock to be like, okay, it's my job now. And I had, the sous chef was still there that could help me out. And I was like, all right. And I went through the freezer, was looking at all the different stuff we had to make. We had, wild shot grouse from England. We had octopus from Spain. We had all this stuff that I'd never done anything with. Yeah. But I had 2 axis deer in the freezer or in the cold storage that I'd shot the day before. And I was like, well, I know how to cook deer. And so I ended up doing a coffee rubbed backstrap dish. I did a tartar. Axis deer tartar. Let's see, what else did I cook? I did 7 different meals, all with axis deer, because that's what I know. I know deer. I've grown up my whole life cooking and eating deer. And so the next day, the chef, they were sneaking him dishes as I was pumping them out that night.
And he's testing them as they go.
He's testing them as they go. And the next day he's like, "Hey, you really got a gift for this." He's like, obviously you've never been to culinary school. Yeah. You have no idea what the fundamentals are. You can't pronounce half the words, that you need to for French cuisine, which is fine. Yeah. And he's like, you don't know any of the kitchen gadgets or nothing, but you definitely have a knack for putting stuff together. He's like, I can help you. And he's like, he fast-tracked me through culinary school. I mean, within the course of a couple of weeks, I had stuff that a lot of people would take, years of practice to do as far as emulsification, sauces, everything,
And now you've got restaurants around the world, people calling you up and saying, "Hey, I'm going to steal one of your recipes."
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, every now and again. Yeah, I had a guy in New York. He called me up and he's like, "Hey, I saw this recipe on MeatEater. I saw that I could download it. I got it, and I made it, and it was amazing. And I want to serve it at my restaurant. Would that be okay?" And I said, "Absolutely." And he put a little blurb on there with my name on it that I developed it and stuff like that. And so yeah, it's grown quite a bit. I never saw myself as being anyone that should be known for cooking. I'm just a fishing guide. I'm a fishing guide that just lives in the woods.
Probably one of the hardest working fishing guides I've ever seen, because you're up early in the morning, you're planning the day. The day is going to be different depending on what the weather's doing, what the reports are. And then when you're back, you're in the kitchen and you're cooking. And I mean, that's not usual, is it? Like, I haven't been with a lot of guides, but that's not.
No. Yeah. I mean, guys will do shore lunch. That's like a big thing. For a guide to do a shore lunch, that's one thing. But to do breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then rack out, a fairly complex dinner at night after being out on the ocean all day or being in a creek all day and everything else, it's a lot. No, I wouldn't say it's common, but I'm also pretty particular about an experience. It's like there's no reason why I shouldn't do the best job possible. And if I can find someone that can do just as good a job as me on any aspect of that, great, I'll hire them. But I just can't. I mean, I wasn't happy with the way some of the other people I've hired over the years could do the fishing guiding. So that means I had to do it, and it's like, well, here's dinner, and now the corn's overdone or something, the broccoli's mush or something like that. Well, I'm not happy with that. Let me do that too. And so it's almost that maybe I'm just too type A, and it's like, it needs to be this way. I was like, I know how it needs to be. And if it can't be that way, I need to do it. And so, I mean, that's where we're here today. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm my own worst enemy.
I love it. And I saw the flash out of the corner of my eye, and you hear the thunder rolling in right now. And it's kind of nice. We're sitting in the nice warm lodge and not out there on the water today.
She's a little rough out there today.
Oh yeah. Tell me about MeatEater. How did you get involved with them?
I just started out. I'm an independent contractor with them. I just help with some of the culinary things, the cooking things. When they moved to Bozeman, they had a couple of guys that were working for them as contributors that didn't work out. They ended up having a little space open, and I threw my hat in the ring. I had some mutual friends that worked there that got hired on. They kind of, went to bat for me, so to speak.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I just do some cooking contributions for them, some recipes and things like that. Don't do near as much as I do now, or I used to. Back when pre-COVID, we were kind of ramping up the cooking thing quite a bit. And then when COVID hit, we shut the office down, weren't going and doing as many YouTube videos coming in because of the pandemic kind of situation. And it never really did, the culinary side never really took off again after that, per se, as much. They kind of started focusing on their trivias and Midwest whitetails, and they kind of went down a different path. And the cooking kind of got pushed a little bit to the back burner. But there's still a lot of great cooking content those guys put out. You can you can type my name into the search bar, you'll find a bunch of the stuff that I've done with them and everything else. And so
I always think that cooking is just that gateway for people who don't fish, who don't hunt, who don't forage, but you're hard pressed to find people who don't like good food, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the little wedge point that'll get somebody who's like, I don't know, but this hunting thing, and just out there slaughtering Bambi or fishing, I don't know. That's typically, I find, the point where you can introduce people to things that they wouldn't otherwise be introduced to, and kind of get them outside.
Yeah, it opens the door. It's like, they've had the domestic filet mignon or whatever it is, and it's like, that's great. I have turned so many people into hunt curious, I guess is the best way to put it, with axis deer. It's such a mild, gentle, easy, palatable meat. And they're like, well, how do I get one? And I was like, where can I buy it? And I was like, no, you got to go kill one. And suddenly the light bulb goes off. It's like, that's why people hunt. It's because they like eating it. And it's a lot of times that connection's not made. And until you've had it prepared well, a lot of times, what's your grandpa's, venison stew where they boil it for 4 hours and it turns into a leather boot. And a lot of people have childhood memories of that. especially a generation back, and it's just horrific. And they aren't aware of how good wild game actually can be until they've had it done well. And then all of a sudden, now hunting seems to be a little more palatable for them. Is the next step.
Yeah, and you're looking forward to the food, and you're looking forward to treating it in a way that's going to make for a fine end product.
For sure.
Talking, there's another flash.
I don't know if I've ever seen lightning here before. Well,
I was mentally counting down between the flashes. And, seeing that, is it getting closer? Is it further?
It's right there.
Right there. We were talking before about some of the famous people that you've been guiding and you've been working with, and you see all types. I mean, some clients that come in that are just top shelf, clients that come in that probably, if I were you, if I had hair, I'd be pulling my hair out. Right? It seems to me that the life of a guide is going to be a pretty stressful one because you're trying to find new people, new personalities. You're then trying to find a way to communicate to them. So you're a bit of a communication expert of what they're going to like or what they aren't. You're a bit of a psychologist, getting them through stuff over missing an animal, missing a fish. Having to work hard to get into a remote area is going to be challenging for some people, and they're not quite mentally prepared for it. It sounds like there's a spectrum. And, and there's a bit of a dice roll when you go into it where you don't actually know who you're going to be getting.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the funnest parts about guiding for me is meeting new people, having set expectations and unset expectations and trying to manage and juggle all that. My wife always makes fun of me. She's like, you're only concerned about something if it's on fire. And it's, I don't know if I embrace the chaos. I kind of like having some of those unknowns. I like challenges. If everything went smoothly and I could predict exactly what was going to happen and how people were going to react, when they shot their first animal or something like that, it wouldn't be fun to me.
Yeah.
And I love the unknown aspect about it. And that's one of the things that keeps me interested in it, is just having that wild card out there at all times.
I think some people, they get into a guided experience because they want to be pampered and they want someone to take care of them or do everything for them. And, that's never been my thing. Like I've been with some fishing guides and they'll set hooks for you. They basically play and I'm like, come on, I know how to operate a downrigger. I know how to set a hook. I know how to do these things. And you know what? If I don't and I mess it up, and then I'm learning, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think other people get into it, like myself. I want to be with someone who I can learn from, and I can learn how they do it. Like I've cooked crabs my entire life, and it's interesting seeing the way that you cook crabs, and there's a lot of similarities in there. I've watching different ways you do things. But what I really like about your style is you're okay letting people fail. You're not right over their shoulder micromanaging, because I absolutely hate that. Not that I've been to a lot of different guides, but let's say on Molokai, for example, I went out and did a recce a couple days ahead of time of the area that I was going to be checking out and we're going to be hunting. And I was checking out what the deer movement looked like, the axis deer. And that would have been my first and only guided hunt that I've ever had. And we go on out there with the guide, and he just gets up in this vehicle. He drives along. I'm like, okay, can I get out here? I got an idea where I can find them and hike on over. He's like, no, just sit here. We're going to wait. They're all going to come down the side, right?
Yeah.
And
they'll be right here in a minute. Don't worry.
That's right. What do you find? Like, how did you come about your style? And also, I'm kind of curious about what the optimal guest would look like. And maybe after that, we'll talk about some horror guests.
Okay. Failure's the best teacher. Okay. People aren't going to learn if you show them how to do it and don't let them try it on their own.
Right.
And fail. So as far as I don't like, I'm the same with you. If some people learn better by getting shown something, but I also want them to do it themselves. So even if I do have to show someone how to do it, I'm going to show them enough to where they should be able to pick it up, but I want them to almost fail at it too, so they'll learn it. It'll stick. And that's just part of learning the outdoors. And the more I'm a guide, not doing it for you. So I'm going to guide you to the right answer, but you need to step. It's your job to step over that log. I'm not going to put your leg over the log, and whatever else it is. And so I think people embrace that a lot more. It can be a little rough at first. They're like, oh, you're supposed to be helping me. And I was like, I am helping you. You don't understand, but I am helping you. You're going to learn better and more if you fail a little, unfortunately. But I mean, that's part of learning. And you're going to have a much higher appreciation for when you do find it starts clicking. And then all of a sudden you'll start to figure it out on your own without having to be told now.
Right.
Now you've formed a learning process to where you can figure stuff out without having to be pampered. And you're going to be a lot better sportsman because of it too.
I've always been the type. How hot is? Don't touch the stove. That stove is hot. I bet you could touch it quickly. I bet you, like, how hot? What do you mean by hot, right? I want to have a level in a bar.
A level,
so touch it quick. Okay, that's what you mean. Yeah, I got a little bit of a burn, but I'm okay, right?
Yeah.
But now I know.
Yep.
And I've always been that type. And I've never, I don't know, some people can learn really well watching other people. I remember learning how to spay cast, and I'm still learning how to spay cast. But that was a frustrating experience with and it wouldn't have been as frustrating if the guy just kind of stepped back and let me fail a whole bunch. But they didn't want to see me fail and, now do this, now do that, and now do this. And it was so micromanaged from that one approach that I was doing everything I could just to bite my tongue and keep my head in the right place and be happy. Watching how you deal with different people, because you've had the whole gamut here.
Oh, every type.
Yeah, and just even on this trip, you've got a teenager, you got a 7-year-old, you've got watching how you work with the different types. It's really neat to see how you can keep spirits high within the group and within yourself, even when we're out there and we lost a cannonball.
First time that's ever happened.
That's right.
Randomly.
Yeah. Somebody, I'm not going to name any names, somebody lost a squid jig. What did I lose? Was that the squid jig?
Yeah.
Probably.
Custom-made squid jig.
Was that a custom-made squid jig? Oh, man. But being able to roll with these punches and keep everyone happy and still be able to produce and leave with goods. It's interesting. What are some of the attributes that the perfect client would have if they came up here?
Eagerness, eager to learn. I mean, you want someone who's interested in, if they just want to kill fish, that's not the perfect client for me. I want someone that wants to know why we're killing that fish and why we're only killing one of those fish, why we're killing one of these fish. Not to have I don't like a lot of preconceived notions like, well, I'm coming to Alaska, I want to, kill a bunch of silver salmon and bring home because that's what I like. I want someone who's open to looking at a bunch of different fish, different ways to experience Alaska or any other place for that matter. But someone who's really open to learning about other things besides what you've read about or what you've seen on the brochure pamphlet or whatever it is. And then someone who's physically able to get around. That's important because this is the Wild West a little bit. You do need to be able to get in and out of boats. You got to be able to hike up creeks. You got to step over logs. You're going to be wet. You're going to be cold. There's going to be things that are going to be unpleasant, but in the end, you're going to remember those unpleasant things as good things. It may not seem like it at first, but yesterday we were all soaking wet. I mean, by the time we got back to the boat, did anyone notice how wet and cold and miserable it was while we were up there catching fish? No, not at all. You remember the fish you caught. You remember how warm the boat felt when he got back and how great that was. And so that adversity, you need to be okay with that. And there's some people, that just have never been in a position of being uncomfortable, and it's good for you to be uncomfortable.
It's amazing. I mean, life is pretty crummy without discomfort.
Yeah.
Those who seek comfort all the time are the most unhappy people that I know.
For sure. Yeah, and so someone with an open mind that wants to experience, all facets, the perfect guy to come up here or gal, it's anyone that's eager to learn, that wants to see past the standardized painting, if you will. It's like what's behind the painting, It looks like Mickey Mouse, but what's behind that?
Right.
So,
do you have any stories of clients that maybe didn't quite meet that bar?
We get a lot of guys that have a very optimistic expectations of their physical abilities.
Okay.
So I'd say my number one thing that becomes kind of maybe a disappointment or put to both me and them is people's overestimation of their physical ability. When I say you need to be able to walk a mile, in rough, uneven terrain, to me, that means you need to walk a mile in rough, uneven terrain. And when people get up here and they see what rough, even terrain actually is, that it looks nothing like the aisle number 6 at Walmart, there becomes a pretty big barrier for what we can and can't do. And so, the biggest thing is the physical ability and the underestimation of how difficult walking through the woods really is. A lot of people have never done it, and these woods are no cakewalk. I mean, there's different types of woods, and a very good manicured trail in Colorado is not going to be the same as bushwhacking up a creek in Southeast Alaska.
Oh yeah, no, it's hard going. There's going to be lots of stuff, lots of places you can slip or trip and deadfall.
Devil's Club, a lot of things that bite you.
Yeah, don't be grabbing that Devil's Club. Animals. You've got bears up here, and you got all over. We didn't actually end up. I think we saw one.
We saw one bear, the whole week, and that's slightly abnormal for us. But with the weather we had, it's not abnormal. I didn't see that as something that was, it's like, oh, we should have seen more bears.
Sure.
No, with the weather that we have, I mean, it's absolutely nuking rain out there now. The bears don't like being out in that. When the wind blows, the bears hate it. And we had one of the windiest weeks I think I've ever had up here. It blew every single day to some extent or the other. We found pockets to get out of it and everything like that. But I mean, historically up here, you might get one windy day out of 10 is all. And we had 5 right in a row, one right after the other. We got number 6 that's coming down with a hurricane. So
what about bear encounters? Have you had many bear encounters up here? Probably individually, but also with guests?
Yeah, we have. We've had a lot of I'm going to call them bear sightings. I wouldn't call them encounters. None of them have been negative. I've had one problem bear ever in my entire guiding career where I had to step in and do something. Other than that, the bears get hunted here, so they have a pretty healthy fear of man. And so if you're not quiet, you're not going to see them anyways. So, a lot of groups that do want to see bears, we'll send them in first to the creeks with a guide. And as long as they're real quiet, there's some popular fishing holes by some waterfalls and things like that where we will frequently see them. But excuse me. They're very cautious. I think a lot of people have a very unwarranted fear of bears. That's always almost the number one question I get when people are inquiring about a trip is like, are there bears? Because they're just terrified of bears. And I've spent my whole life in the woods with bears.
Sure.
And to me, they're a furry timber pig.
Sure.
I mean, they're an omnivore. It's not this big, mean, gnarly predator that everyone makes them out to be. They eat roots. They eat berries. I mean, they're not. I don't understand where the fear of bears comes from.
I think it just takes one negative encounter to have a healthy respect for the bears.
Yeah, they're big, they're strong, and they have teeth.
Yeah, but that gets glorified, right?
It does, and I think people take it too far. To me, it's not. I feel sorry for the bears because they shouldn't have the negative annotation that they have for being this man killer and everything else. And very few bears that I've ever seen have become any sort of aggressive towards me. And if they have, they've had a pretty good reason for it. It's not like they've done it without reason. So.
Fair enough.
So that being said, it's great to see bears. It's great to see bears in their environment, outside of, a curated type place, so like a bear view, which we do have permits to the bear viewing down here. And so we do have a place we can go and get really close to the bears because they haven't been hunted or messed with for 40 years. And so they're used to human interaction. And so you can get very close to those bears. And people love that. Just being that close to that dangerous of an animal and getting their picture, getting nice pictures of the cubs and the bears grabbing salmon out of the stream and stuff like that. And then we have, the actual bears that are not used to be, humans that we'll sneak up on in the creeks. We'll be creeping up a creek looking for fish, and then all of a sudden here's this bear. And they usually see you about the same time we see them. They're pretty in tune with their environment. And there's always that brief minute of, what are you? And then it's like, what are you? And then decisions have to be made on both sides. But 99 times out of 100, that bear is going to try to get away from you as quickly as possible, especially if they smell you.
So you've got them educated here. In British Columbia, we've educated our grizzly bears in particular in the opposite direction.
Yes.
So we've decided, our government says can't hunt the grizzly bears, put a moratorium on that. And these grizzlies have zero fear of people anymore. And they just keep getting closer. They know they're the king of the castle.
Oh, yeah.
And
they're untouchable.
And that's exactly it.
Yeah. Yeah, you make them untouchable, and you have a problem. You take a good bear and make it a bad bear by not giving it some boundaries.
And so all the while you're doing the school thing, you're doing the hunting, fishing, trapping thing, and then anytime it snows out, you're up a mountain. You were a pro skier for a while.
Yeah. I used to do big air competitions through the mid-'90s all the way to the early 2000s, and then the free ride competitions as well when that started. And I think it was 98 was the first one. So, yeah, I did. That was my passion. My dad, we had an outfitting business and an excavation business, and I'd trap in the wintertime and ski. And then the rest of the year I was running heavy equipment, doing some fishing guiding, doing some hunting guiding. And then winter was kind of my off time. And so I really like skiing. I still ski to this day. I blew my ACL out last winter, first one of my life. Skiing, of course. I'm getting a little bit heavier set than I used to be and starting to getting a little older. Yeah, eating too much good food and made a mistake. But I grew up skiing a lot. I'd put on average probably close to 100 days on skis all through high school into my probably freshman year of college, and then I had to back off. I kind of got out of the skiing industry a little bit my freshman year of college because I was missing a lot of competitions due to school, and I kind of got the ultimatum from K2. They're like, hey, you either keep skiing and go all in or finish college and then come back. And in the 3 years it took me to finish college after that, the ski industry had gone so far past where I was at, I got left in the dust. And so I was a relic at that point in time.
Fair enough.
And that's how the skiing stuff ended. But I still love skiing. And to this day, that's kind of my downtime. After hunting season and before I go down to Hawaii to guide, I got this little window in just the end of December, 1st of January, and I ski. And that's something I really like doing. I always have. I probably always will, against my wife's chagrin. She says if I have one more knee surgery, it's over for me. But so I got to be a little more careful now that I'm older.
So skiing, that's your downtime hobby, but also precision rifle shooting.
Yep, guns. I love guns.
Hey, speak my language.
Yeah, so I like the reloading side of precision rifles more than anything.
Yeah.
To me, it's semi witchcraft, semi science, and so it's this happy medium blend of making something work and watching it come together. And I love reloading for rifles. I do it for fun for myself. I do it for buddies. I do it for different outdoor reps. They'll get a rifle and be like, hey, I need this rifle all dialed in. I got this hunt. Can you make me a custom load for this? So, it's, better than what factory can produce. Absolutely. I'll get right on that. And so that's another hobby of mine that I really like doing. It's kind of a job. I mean, I get compensated for it here and there for doing something, so it's not a complete hobby. Sure. Technically it's kind of work, but I really enjoy it. It's soothing to me. After you get done guiding and fishing and all the other stuff I do with lodge and business ownership and everything else, sitting down at a reloading bench to me is, what a lot of people would do for like reading a book. It's kind of my little escape. So I can shut my brain off and just sit there and make bullets, and
you're 100% present.
Yeah,
You're present in the moment of what you're doing.
Yeah, and so it's a good way for me to kind of turn my brain off. Reloading ammo for me is kind of my shutdown. When I need to take a break from all the mental trials that I have for making boats and mechanicals and having all the things work around me, it's reloading to me is easy. I can just sit down and just reload and just turn everything else off.
Like the Energizer Bunny, just go, 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 go.
Yeah.
So when you wrap up here, you're off to Montana?
Yep, back to Montana. We wrap up here, and then I move straight into hunting season and cooking classes in Montana. So we got a couple of classes. I got I fly in. I got to go to a wedding the next day that I fly in, and then the next day after that, I got back-to-back cooking classes in Bozeman, and then after that, we roll into a steelhead camp down in Hell's Canyon that I put on every year that I've done since I was 16 years old. I'm 43 now, and so I meet up with a bunch of riffraff, I guess is the best way to put it, from all over the Northwest, and we have guys that come from Alaska, California, Washington, Montana, and a lot of them are just seasonal fishing guides that, that middle to end of October is kind of time off. And it's a lot of time it's before rifle season starts, before hunting guides start to go back to work, and after the fishing guides get done with their season. So it's kind of a collection of different individuals in the fishing/hunting world that just, we all get together and just go steelhead fish for a week and camp without cell phone service. And it's kind of a break between the two seasons, and it makes it kind of nice.
So you've been chasing wild animals all over the world,
yeah,
for most of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You ever stop to think what it is you're actually chasing?
I know what I'm chasing now. It's a time I probably didn't know 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And now I'm chasing the feeling that I got 15 years ago for someone else, if that makes sense.
No, I get it.
It's I don't get excited when I shoot a big buck.
Sure.
I've never had buck fever. Wouldn't know that what that was even like. I was shooting squirrels so young that, there was no buck fever. I never went through that stage because I started so young and did it so often that to me it was a job. It wasn't an emotional thing. And later in life, getting to see how other people get emotionally vested into a successful hunt, to me that's exciting. That gets me more excited watching them being excited than it ever would me pulling the trigger.
Well, we haven't hunted together yet, but we have fished together.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, I can see the excitement on your face when we come into the river. Both for yourself, fishing gets you excited.
Fishing does, yeah.
As well as for the guests, for
Yeah.
everybody else out there. The excitement that you have. When my son hooked up the other day with that coho.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, that was so that's kind of interesting how you can take something that you're passionate about, you can make it your business, but it still fuels you.
Oh, for sure. And I love fishing. Everyone always asks, what's your favorite, fishing or hunting? And I hunt. Hunting's fun, and I get excited about hunting. But hunting's work too. Fishing to me is always fun, no matter what it is, because hunting has a lot more steps to it. I can just go fishing. It's hard for me to just go hunting. I need to have a plan. I have to have an idea of what animal I want. You get one animal. When I go fishing, I can catch one. I can catch 100. I'm just going to go fish. So it takes a lot of the pressure off, I think, and a lot of the mental load when it comes to fishing. So I can have fun with fishing, whether it's mildly successful or extremely successful. A hunt a lot of times is just measured in the success of harvesting an animal for a lot of people.
Right.
And, I find value in hunting to me in the experience. Like, I like that. And,
Sure.
and if I can watch someone else have a successful hunt and harvest an animal, that makes me excited. If I do it myself, it's not as big a deal,
I get that.
And so, but fishing is a little different. Fishing's always exciting for me because there's not just one animal. It's more about the experience for fishing versus a goal-oriented task.
What do you find is the most requested targeted species from your guests? And if the roles were reversed, if it was you going out there, what do you think your most favorite targeted species would be?
I love catching lingcod out here. Bottom fishing is super fun to me. It's a lot of times guests don't like it. They're big, heavy rods. The jig's heavy. We had some pretty tough halibut fishing when we were up here.
But we got her done.
We got her done. We got some. So it's a little more of a grind. And I'd say everybody loves eating them. Nobody likes catching them. So I really like it. That's, the lingcod especially is one of my favorite things to catch up here. Obviously, in the creeks, the pink salmon, guests love catching pink salmon because they catch one every single cast and they just go hog wild. They think it's the greatest thing ever. To me, that's my least favorite thing to catch because they all look the same. They're all about the same size, and you catch one every cast, and they're not hard at all. So I mean, it's a difference, and not all guests are like.
For you too.
Yeah, it's a lot more work for me. I'm just sitting there unhooking fish as fast as I can. Right. Just, my hands are shredded from salmon teeth. Even though I got little dehookers to get them off, they still wrapping my hand around the line and getting line cuts in my fingers. And it's just, it's work.
Yeah.
And, they're loving it because they don't have to go through all the line cuts and the salmon teeth because I'm unhooking them before them.
Of course they love it.
Yeah, so they love it. So, I mean, I definitely like the fish that are a little bit more mysterious, a little harder to catch. I mean, king salmon's probably one of my favorite things to fish for. It's also incredibly boring. It's hours of boredom followed by minutes of chaos. For a lot of people, it's like sitting there watching a rod just do this, in the downrigger and nothing happened for a long time. That's not exactly that fun. But to me, the anticipation of that and trying to figure out where that fish is at and getting them to bite, I love the equation behind it. And they don't see the equation because I'm up on the sounder, watching fish come up and marking it. Yeah, I'm seeing different things that are happening. So to me, it's a bigger picture that they don't get to see. Where a salmon in the creek, their world is fly, water, fish eats. I reel it in. There's not all the other parts going on. So it's a little more simple.
See, I'd be, I'd probably make a terrible guide. I'd be frustrated looking back and everyone's hooting and hollering and having a good time. Like, come on. Can at least one of you keep an eye on the rods back there?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Can somebody be back there ready? And you find you have to bite your tongue a lot? Or
I've gotten really good at doing that over the years.
Biting your tongue?
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger, I was a little snappier. And, I can get a little salty sometimes, especially if I have to say the same thing. If we make the same mistake, once we hit the 15 to 20 time mark in the same mistake, that's when I usually start to turn up the volume a little, be like, all right, okay, we've done this before. How many times have we gone over this exact same thing? Let's work on this one more time.
Repeat it back to me. What did I just say to you?
Yeah, for sure. So you do have, stags, but it's, everyone's there for the same reason. We're all trying to have fun. So if you're not having fun, your guys can't have fun. That's just all there is to it. And once you understand that everyone's trying their hardest, clients trying their hardest, I'm trying my hardest, and you understand that that's just the way it is, and there's no reason to be upset with anyone for any reason because they're trying their hardest, we're trying our hardest. And once you kind of get that mentality, it makes it easy to be okay with failure and things that don't happen, and her having to say, now don't drop the rod tip on this one. I know it's our 5th salmon that we've lost today, but let's try to keep that up one more time.
Yep.
And so it takes a special breed of person to have to see that over and over and over again and still be okay with it. And it's just one of those things that maybe I was just born to do it. I don't know, but I have a pretty high patience level when it comes to having to repeat myself.
Well, I'd say that I've witnessed that, so that's good.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. The crew we had here is pretty darn good.
Oh, they were great.
But I have witnessed you being able to be constrained when things are getting a little bit more difficult. And that's speaking about difficult, we had a difficult time getting out to one spot just because of the weather. It just wouldn't be safe. Weather didn't permit it. But you mentioned that there's a spot that's way far out here. Can you paint a picture for me? What would I have been looking at?
Man. Yeah, we call it Japan because it feels like you drive to Japan. And it's basically on the outside, the ocean side of all of the islands, that we're in here. So once you're out on the ocean side, it's 100 miles by boat in any direction to the next closest town. So it's a long boat ride, and it's so hard for anyone to get to. I mean, we're closer here to it than almost anywhere else. But the Craig boys, they're coming 110 to get to it. It's the most remote place in Southeast Alaska, and the fishing there is unreal. I mean, it's hard to get a jig to the bottom, and you catch all kinds of different fish. Everything from giant yellow eye to huge lingcod. I mean, I hooked a halibut out there and landed it last week that was probably pushing 300 pounds. The biggest one I've ever seen. And it's just, you never know what you're going to catch. So it's just, you're going to catch something immediately, but you don't know what it is. And it could be anything from a little 3-pound black rockfish to, a 70-pound lingcod. And I'm pretty confident that I will break the world record lingcod out there. I've been within 2 pounds now.
Seriously?
Yep. And I've been within 10 pounds of it quite a few times. I think the world record's 82 pounds, I believe. And I keep knocking on the door. And, same with yellow eye rockfish. I mean, I actually broke the world record yellow eye, but we weren't allowed to retain him at the time. I weighed one that was 42 pounds, and I think the current world record's 39. And so there's fish out there that are trophy class fish that are super awesome. And it's unbelievable. We weren't able to make it this week. This is actually the only week we weren't able to make it this whole season. Very rarely do I not get out there. I can think of one other week that I never got out there before in the history of me doing this. And so a bummer we couldn't get out there. The black bass fishing out there for the black pelagic rockfish is, as soon as you hit the water, they'll jump out of the water with your lure hanging off the side of the boat and eat it in the air. It's so nonstop action that everybody loves it. I mean, it gets to the point where it's just chaotic, and it's one of the few places I know of where the bottom fishing is that lights out. So,
and the storm's getting closer. You can hear that thunder getting louder.
Man,
what?
I don't think I've ever seen lightning. I'm trying to think of one time that I've seen lightning. I've heard thunder a couple of times up here, but I can't think of a single time I've actually seen lightning here. So today might be a first.
Hey, we set a few firsts on this trip.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
for sure. What does the next 5 years hold for you and for chrome chasers?
I'd really like to grow out this fall and summer fishing foraging program. I think it's a good example of where I think the outfitting and fishing industry, especially in Southeast Alaska, needs to go. Historically, Southeast Alaska has been a catch and kill, bring home as much fish as you possibly can sort of mentality. And the regulations, they keep getting stricter and stricter and stricter, and you're allowed to take less and less and less because we've overfished it, both commercially and in sport. And, I wanted to start this program almost as an example of how I think we should be doing it. I'm here to spread out my impact over the entire scope of the resource versus focusing on like a silver salmon and halibut focused program where we let guests take as much of that home as they can. I think that by teaching people how to cook it and how to, pick wild mushrooms, catch rockfish, dig clams, catch crab and shrimp in pots, spread your impact over the whole resource, get a huge database and experience with all the different things and make it into delicious food and bring just enough home to feed your family and show them what you did. I think that's the future for what Alaska, especially Southeast, needs to be looking forward to. The idea of coming up here and filling a bunch of fish boxes and bringing it back, I don't agree with that. We limit all of our guests to one fish box, per guest, under 50 pounds that they can bring home. And they can put whatever they want in there. I've had people take jelly that we've made from the berries we've picked home, canned butter clams, dried mushrooms or par-cooked mushrooms. I had one gal that came up, he had a daughter and he said, well, I've taken my son to Alaska 3 times. I want to give my daughter a trip. And I was like, well, what's she into? And he's like, well, she's into foraging. And like, I heard you on a podcast about talking about foraging and fishing. And it's like, this seemed like the perfect trip because my son and I could fish because we're diehard fishermen. And she could, hunt mushrooms and do some of the other stuff. And, I booked them on the trip and they came up. And at the end of that week, that father was like, I had no idea how much fun mushroom hunting could be. I couldn't hardly pull him out of the woods by the end of the week. He's like, I'm a diehard fisherman and I now have a whole different way to look at this, and so it's just, the experience needs to be put on a higher pedestal than the end goal of a filled fish box. And so that's, in 5 years, I see myself, I want to grow this program out. I want to set an example for other lodges, to take less by doing more.
Is that a hard sell?
Yeah, that's a very hard sell.
So, because so many people, they just want to come in and go home with the biggest monster.
Biggest box they can of fish. Yeah.
Right. How are you finding those people?
A lot of it's, have been a lot of my clients from steelhead fishing. They've come up and they've experienced this steelhead program and they're like, this place is wild. Man, I'd love to bring my kids or my wife, but this is just too hard of fishing and stuff. And it's like, well, our fall fishing foraging program is nothing like our steelhead program. It is, anyone could do it. I mean, we had Adelaide. She's 7 years old.
Yeah.
She did the whole program, no problem. And,
Yeah.
so we had a 90-year-old 2 weeks ago. It's something that is accessible to, I believe, all age groups, all ability levels. And so, it's good. It's good to have, it's a great way to get, guests up here with a family, and it's easy and palatable. But I really haven't done much advertising. It's been all word of mouth. And a lot of it has been, existing clients from Montana or from our steelhead program that have been like, hey, I want my wife to come and see this, but it's too hard to do steelhead. And it's like, well, here, look at this program. And so that's where almost all of them have come from. And then word of mouth, once they come once, I mean, we had, mostly return guests this year again. And so I never saw this trip as being something that was people would do every year. Right. I figured this, the way I have it kind of geared up and set up is a bucket list Alaska trip. It's like, I want to pile as much of Alaska into a week as I can to have the best experience possible to do, here's my Alaska trip, And so I never envisioned this being a multi-year, repeat kind of program. But I mean, it kind of has turned out that way from the guys that have come. There's just so much to do. You can't fit it all in a week. And they end up coming back. It's like, well, we never went to the glacier this time. I'm going to come back and do it again. Let's go to the glacier this time. And, and so, maybe I'm looking at it a little bit differently. It might not be a once in a lifetime trip. It might be an everyday kind of thing. But I want to teach people enough in their trip here to be able for them to take that back home with them, from the cooking, from the foraging, from spreading their impact out over the resource. I want them to take that home instead of a box full of fish.
That's where I see the real cheat code for people who want to be able to go out and maybe self-guide themselves next time and feel comfortable being able to identify different mushrooms and knowing how to fish or how to get up a stream and what to look for. I mean, there's all these little things, even just vacuum sealing the shrimp, the spot prawns, or the on the smoker. Not everyone's spent as much time as you have building their own smoker from wood that they've found and salvaged themselves and then milled themselves and put together. And you've got it down to a science back there. I see that as a cheat code for anybody else who wants to emulate this kind of a lifestyle.
For sure. And, and with the popularity, it seems like it's getting more and more acceptable. It wasn't acceptable to tell your hunting buddies that you were out picking mushrooms. They'd make fun of you for that 20 years ago. Sure. What are you, a little hippie running around the roads picking? And now it's like people are starting to embrace that lifestyle more. The more we see that the industrialized food complex is harming us, seed oils and inhumane treatment of poultry and things like that. It's like, suddenly going out and getting your own food seems like the right thing to do. And it's becoming much more acceptable. And, this is basically a master class that's fast tracked that puts you right to the front of the line when it comes to being able to sustain yourself in the wild.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should be talking about?
Man, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Well,
I will need to put some more wood in the smokehouse pretty soon.
That's exactly what I was thinking right now. Why don't we call it here? I'm going to put links in the description to how people can find you. Everyone take a look there. And after we do the smokehouse, you and we can record a quick Outpost, which is the private members podcast with insider tips and tricks. And
perfect.
Get a little bit more personal, but we'll call it a wrap there. And Rick, thank you so much for being on the Silvercore Podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Travis.